Hi, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Hayden.
And this is
Until the End of Crime.
Hayden, do you remember back in episode 13 when a teen's family moved to Tennessee and she stayed in Massachusetts with her best friend's family shortly after the friend's mom had passed away?
Yeah, and they had the Frogger?
Yes.
Was that already episode 13?
Yes.
Because this is episode 37.
Indeed.
Wow. I do remember that story because it was wild.
Yeah. But you specifically thought it was weird that the teen's family moved to Tennessee and that she stayed behind.
Yes, I still think that's weird.
Okay, I kind of want to explore more of why you thought that was odd, assuming that you still feel that way, which you just said you do.
I think that parents have a responsibility to their children to care for them and raise them and make sure that they themselves are in the best possible environment, not send a 15-year-old or 14-year-old to stay with her friend so that she can provide extra care and support after her friend's mother died. I guess I understand the altruism of it, but by the same token, I think that for most intents and purposes, the parent's responsibility is to take care of their child well.
I don't know that I recalled it being so that she could help offer more support. I honestly don't know why they did it. So maybe they didn't want to disrupt her education.
You said that the first time.
And that they were going to be returning, that they knew that they weren't going to be moving to Tennessee long term.
I don't remember that.
No, I don't remember that either.
You did say so she could finish school there the first time.
Yeah, I'm just postulating.
And I think you said so she could be there to help out her friend.
Maybe. It's possible. I feel like I remember watching the show over it. I watched two shows and they were done very differently. And in one of them that explained some of the rationale behind those types of moves, I would not have considered the narrators to be super reliable.
Okay.
And it had been decades after the fact, so.
Right.
So is there a certain age that you think it is acceptable to have a child go stay with a friend out of state?
I don't know. I think it depends on the relationship. I think it depends on the relation between the people. Are they going to go stay with family members? Is it a family or two families that are really close to each other and have been for a long time? What qualifies this other set of parents or parent to care for your child in your absence while you're hours and hours away? I think that the legal age that a teenager can seek emancipation from their parents is 16. So maybe that's a good litmus test for when someone might be able to make that decision. There are obvious exceptions to what I think.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If a parent or parents knows that they cannot care for their child well, absolutely, whatever. If there's someone willing to do that, fine, great and dandy. But I think in most instances, a child should probably be with their parents until they go out on their own and they can legally take care of themselves. I mean, for me overall, that's just how I feel. And that's, again, I've said it, there are exceptions to the rule. But by the same token, it also depends on the relationships. Who are you leaving them with? I just don't think that parents, if you have the capability, you shouldn't absolve yourself of taking care of your own kids.
On that note, are you ready to get into this case?
Yes.
Alphonsa Payne was born in New Barbados Township, New Jersey in 1933 to be approximate.
I think my grandma was born that year.
My grandma was born that year.
So he'd be, what, today? 89, 90?
92.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad you got there.
This paragraph, this information in particular, I had a difficult time finding. I spent about 3 hours doing a deep dive that took me on a genealogical website search and several obituaries and so on and so forth. So that's why this information is not really precise. It's a lot of me trying to do my own math and piecing things together. Right around the age of 20, I'm estimating, he married a woman named Barbara, and the couple had 3 children, Maureen, Alphonsa Jr., and Cynthia. At some point, the couple went their separate ways, and Alphonsa met and married Celestine, who was about 17 years his junior.
Oh, no. This is already spelling disaster.
Why?
17 years his junior?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm worried.
Okay. From what I can tell, they had 4 children.
So now he's up to 7.
Yeah, which is a lucky number.
Lucky if you want to make yourself miserable.
Ivory, Aubrey, Soteria, and Wendy.
Soteria?
That's my best estimate at the pronunciation.
How is it spelled?
Saterria.
Okay, sure. It makes me think of Sagittaria from Drag Race España.
Party.
Okay.
So Celestine was actually only born 4 years before his daughter Maureen. So
yeah, like I said, trouble.
Yeah, but to each their own, right? Maybe.
Any word on how Maureen felt about this?
No, but also kind of crazy to be like to each their own when obviously we're doing a true crime podcast. Their characters in this story.
Yeah, and we are going to dissect and pick it apart.
Yeah. By the mid-70s, I believe all the children were born, and I could have this wrong, but I believe that Wendy is the youngest of the bunch. Tragedy struck the Payne family when Alfonso Jr., who went by Chuck, passed away on November 26th, 1988, at the age of 32. That's my sister's birthday. Wendy was close friends with a girl named Tara Carter, and since the two girls spent so much time together, staying the night at each other's homes, their families met and became friends. The families would help each other out when times got tough, so the Carters were there for the Paynes when, in the years following Alfonso Jr.'s death, Alfonso Sr.'s health began to deteriorate.
I don't want to cut you off,
but
and I don't want to jump the gun.
Mm-hmm.
But this is sounding like an exception to what I shared earlier, which is that there are lots of exceptions.
What?
Your question earlier.
There are a lot of exceptions to
kids staying with other people. If that's where this is headed with Wendy.
I'll just say this. My question and how it connects to this is very loose.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad that you chose to inquire further after my response.
You're lucky I didn't ask you a question about my birthday.
You're right. Okay, go ahead. Are we feeling kind of low energy?
Us?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel like our energy is like up and down.
Yeah, I should let you get somewhere to have energy.
Okay. Alfonso Sr. became ill, and it seemed like he was just constantly ill, and no one could quite figure out what sort of treatment would make him healthy.
Celestina was poisoning him. It
became a question of whether or not he would ever overcome this illness or if it would be terminal. You saying, I should let you get somewhere, and then jumping in the next sentence.
I'm sorry, continue.
Alfonso worked for Tuxedo Enterprises in Teaneck, New Jersey, and Celestine was a homemaker. So the family maybe didn't always have a lot of cushion in their budget. Finances were tight, and with Alfonso being ill, things weren't necessarily great between the couple, according to Celestine's psychiatrist.
Okay. Celestine's psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
Was this a court-ordered psychiatrist?
No.
She just had one?
Mm-hmm.
And what year was this?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. And this is after the death of her son.
Stepson.
Well, not her son, but yeah. Okay.
The couple had fallen behind on their mortgage, and the bills were just stacking up. It seemed as though they were on their way to losing their house, which, as we know, this can cause a breakdown in a marriage. But September 4th, 1991, your sister's birthday, all of our birthdays are in this case.
Wow.
September 4th, 1991, tragedy struck the Payne family once more. Alfonso Sr. was found unresponsive in the street that night and was declared deceased after first responders arrived on the scene. The medical examiner performed an autopsy and discovered that Alfonso had a cocktail of drugs in his system combined with alcohol, and it seems that this amalgamation of substances was lethal.
Any word on what the substances were?
More on that later.
Okay.
His death was determined to be an accidental overdose. The area his body was found in was an area known for drug use.
I'm feeling a little skeptical about it being an accidental overdose.
Wild. So the setting also gave them an idea.
Overread until the end of crime. I feel a little skeptical about anything labeled as accidental in regards to death.
It gave them an idea of what they were dealing with before the medical examiner had examined the body. And while the Carters had been a source of support for the Paynes, it was unfortunately around this time that Tara's mom got a job in Alabama. So she and Tara, who was the youngest, went to Alabama while her older sister Rosie stayed in Paterson, New Jersey with their dad to finish high school. They had an older brother, but Rosie Rosie was in her last year of high school, so I think it's safe to say he was, at the very least, no longer in school and likely out of the house by this point.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't think Tara was all that jazzed about moving to Phoenix City, Alabama, because...
Who would be excited to move to Alabama?
Look, it's not me.
Certainly not me. Where the banjos play.
In this economy.
And the rednecks slay. Blacks and gays. No Alabama.
How do they feel about allies?
I don't think they like fierce Brock allies.
Ugh. Phoenix City, Alabama, which does not have an O in it.
Okay.
Which is just odd, but whatever. She didn't want to leave her bestie Wendy behind, and she and Rosie were also very close, and just her whole life had been in Paterson, New Jersey to this point. So she and Rosie had been inseparable, and it was difficult to move at 14.
Okay.
But she was able to come to terms with it when she met a boy. The two of them dated, and as it sometimes happens when people date, they found out that they were going to not just be girlfriend and boyfriend, but also mommy and daddy.
And this was the 14-year-old?
Yes.
While she was in Phoenix?
Yes, I think that she was older by this point, maybe 15 or 16. She wasn't 14.
In Alabama, it's not like it matters.
No.
Wow, I'm being hateful to Alabama today.
Yeah.
And you know what? I am sure there are good people in Alabama.
Trinity the Tuck is from Alabama.
Yeah. I also think that Alabama has one of the best law schools at the University of Alabama.
Is Sam Starr also from Alabama?
I don't know.
Born of Trinity's womb?
Maybe.
They had practiced some type of heterosexual sorcery and were face to face with teenage parenthood.
Oh.
Shortly after Tara gives birth, in what I believe is based on some math I did in my head, so definitely don't hedge your bets on it, was 1991. It seems that only one of them was willing to continue down the path of being a parent. She couldn't have had that kid in 1991. It wasn't until the end of 1991 that she moved to Phoenix City.
Wow.
See, this is why we're not hedging our bets on it. It was more likely that the child was born around 1993.
Okay.
Maybe late 92, 93, right around there. It seems that only one of them was willing to continue down the path of being a parent, so they broke up, and Tara's mom was now not only raising Tara through her final years before adulthood, but also teaching her how to be a mother on top of that. During this time, Tara's dad took a leave of absence in order to go stay in Phoenix City to help figure out how to transition into this new phase of life for the family. When he returned to New Jersey, his job was able to relocate him to a position closer to his wife, daughter, and now granddaughter in Georgia. So we're all over the place today.
Yeah, I'd much rather be in Georgia than Alabama.
I'd prefer to be in Jersey on all accounts.
That's fair.
From what I was able to gather, the whole unit moved to Georgia, and at this point, Tara is 18. She's been a mom for a couple of years already and is missing her home of New Jersey. So she and Rosie moved back to Paterson. I don't know if
Is
she
Rosie
was
her daughter?
her sister.
Her sister.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if she moved up there and finished high school or if she finished high school before she went up there. None of that is all that clear to me.
Okay.
Tara wasn't fully prepared to take on 100% custody of her daughter, so her parents kept her while Tara was in New Jersey.
This is an example of me also understanding your child staying with someone else.
Look, you're making better connections to my question and my case than I did, so props to you, Mama.
Props to you, Mama.
Rosie goes and stays with one of her close friends and her family, while Tara is able to move in with Wendy in Celestine's house.
Danger, danger, alert, alert.
What is dangerous?
Celestina killed her husband.
Celestine is a murderer?
I mean, I don't know where this accidental drug cocktail came from.
Okay, he was found in an area that drugs were known to be prevalent.
I don't know. I'm still not buying it.
Celestine had been renting out rooms in her home. It seems that this is a practice that predated her husband's death, but I'm not 100% sure. So Tara became one of her renters, paying to share Wendy's room with her. I'm not sure what else might have been included in her fees, but I would not be crazy surprised if Celestine fed Tara,
Right.
you know?
Arsenic.
Whoa. Cut to March 4th, 1995. somebody's 6th birthday. That's me. And 30 years to the day before this episode was released. It's just before 11 in the morning on an unseasonably warm Saturday, so people are out and about. A couple of joggers decide it's the perfect time to go to East Side Park for their jog in order to take advantage of the nice weather. They notice what appears to be a sleeping bag, which is out of the ordinary for this park, which is considered safe and clean. They also notice red sneakers and blue jeans poking out of the bottom of the bag, so they approach it and determine that this is not someone sleeping, but a body. They contact law enforcement and stay with the body until emergency services arrive. The medical examiner arrives on the scene and notes that there has been trauma to the back of the head, but the detectives on the scene know that because of the trauma to the back of the head, there would be a lot of blood present at the time of death, and there is not a lot of blood near the body. So they know she was killed elsewhere.
Wait, who was killed?
The person whose body is in the park.
Oh, but we don't know who it is.
Correct.
Okay.
So they know she was killed elsewhere and dumped at the park. And for the moment Hayden couldn't wait for. There is no identification on the body, so they know that they have a Jane Doe who is approximately 18 or 19, and they need to figure out who she is.
Sure.
As you do with bodies. It was such a stupid thing to put. Her body is transported to Newark, New Jersey, to the medical examiner's office, where they run her fingerprints. They get a match on Monday, March 6th, and determine that the body is that of 18-year-old Tara Carter.
Of course it is.
Whoa. You're saying you have Celestine's number?
What I'm saying is there's just absolutely no way this case is as predictable as I'm feeling that it is, unless you lent me your superpowers of pattern recognition and I've already unlocked the case.
Maybe this is my gift to you.
Okay. Okay. I'm just saying, I have Celestina's number.
Celestine.
I've punched it, and I haven't been this certain of who the perpetrator is this early since our very first episode. And I ended up being wrong. I thought that John had something to do with his wife's death. And here, I feel like Celestine had something to do with Alfonso's death.
Even though the medical examiner ruled it accidental.
Yes. There are no accidents in this. And until the end of crime?
Okay, obviously the crime here is Tara was murdered.
Yeah, but Alfonso was also murdered. That's just how I'm feeling. That's what I'm thinking.
Accusations abound.
Also, I cannot tell if you are trying to push it off, haha, or if you're trying to, like, it's really not the case. I really cannot tell today.
Good.
You're doing a good job of poker facing me through this.
They're able to determine her last known address was on Jefferson Street at Celestine's home. So they go to the house and speak with Celestine. They ask if this is the residence of Tara Carter, and she confirms that yes, she lives here, but she tells them that Tara's not home at the time. And they want to know if she's got connections, other locations that are prominent in her life. And she gives them the address of Rosie's friend, who she is staying with. The investigators do not tell Celestine that Tara's body was found and that she'd been killed because they needed to notify her family first. So they're working under the guise that they are trying to find Tara.
Doesn't really matter because Celestine already knows.
When they get to the home where Rosie is staying and speak with her, they ask her about Tara, and she confirms that they're sisters. At this point, her friend's stepfather steps in to see why they're asking questions about Tara.
Oh.
He is also familiar with her, and so the police show him the pictures of her body, and he is able to confirm her identity. And that's how Rosie finds out that her sister has been killed, and she is devastated. As Tara's older sister, she felt that she had failed to protect Tara from whoever had killed her, so she agreed to work with the police.
Is there any reason she wouldn't have worked with the police? It sounds like Rosie's friend's father wasn't keen on police.
No reason that I would necessarily know about at this point in time. I think that it's safe to say that some people just don't trust the police.
Makes sense. I get it.
They interview Rosie and she tells them that she hadn't been able to get in touch with Tara since the night before. Tara, who had wanted to get licensed to do hair professionally, was planning on going to school for that. And she and Rosie had kind of gotten the yearning to be in New Jersey out of their systems. Tara was sick of paying bi-weekly to stay in a room with her friend when she could go to Georgia, go back to school, and live with her parents and daughter. She and Rosie had discussed leaving for Georgia on March 3rd, but then Rosie saw that there was a concert she really wanted to go to that would be the evening of the 3rd. So she and Tara kind of went back and forth, and she finally convinced Tara to agree that the two of them would go to the concert together on the 3rd and then roll out of New Jersey on March 4th. But Rosie had not been able to reach Tara on the 3rd, and after trying to contact her for hours, she ended up going to the concert solo, figuring she'd hear back from Tara the following day. But she still could not get in contact with Tara on March 4th, despite that being the date they were planning on moving back to Georgia. Since Rosie was unable to help them with Tara's movements on March 3rd, because she had not been able to get in contact with her, they headed back to Celestine's house on Jefferson Street, where they disclosed to Celestine that Tara had been murdered and asked if they can talk to her to help piece together her movements leading up to her death. Celestine is very eager to help because she had known this girl since she was very young and she wanted to know what happened.
Okay, sure. She was eager to know what happened. Absolutely. She had no idea.
I've
dug my heels in on Celestine.
Like, you're done with the case.
I'm not done with the case. I just have a strong feeling that Celestine is involved. Now, do I understand the motivation for killing Tara? No, not yet anyway.
Okay.
Maybe she was upset because she knew she was about to lose income.
I'm not saying yes or no. I just want to point out that she'd been leasing space in her home for at least 6 years at this point.
Yeah.
But not to Tara.
No, that's true. But I don't think of murders as being rational.
I know that they had at least 3 different tenants, including Tara, that lived in the home. So not crazy to think that, okay, well, she's moving out. Somebody else could move in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Celestine, Aubrey, her son, and Wendy go to police headquarters to give statements. The detectives were very interested to learn about Tara's daily life so that they might be able to track down why she had been killed or who had killed her. Do you remember the other day when I was telling you that there was somebody in this case that they kept not referring to by name?
Yes.
That was Wendy. Every time I say Wendy, that's probably me putting together that it was Wendy.
Why would they not say Wendy?
I don't know.
Was she a minor at the time?
No. She was older than Tara, I'm pretty sure.
Well, how weird.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they need to protect Wendy's identity?
I don't know. I think that they just didn't realize that it was one and the same because they obviously talk about her. They give her full name at the beginning of the episode that I watched. They were like, Wendy Joy Payne and Tara were friends. And I was like, okay, how mad was I when I realized that I had Joy written down somewhere in my notes and didn't realize that? So I was just looking up information on Wendy Payne, genealogical records and whatnot.
I bet that was difficult.
It was very annoying. I was like, I've had it this whole time. It's one of the first things I wrote down. Celestine told the detectives that Tara was like a daughter to her and that she was unable to truly give them much information that would be helpful because she had gone to South Carolina to visit her 2 older children. She had left on March 3rd at about 11 p.m. and she left South Carolina in the late hours of Sunday, March 5th, which didn't put her back home until the early hours of March 6th.
Celestine is smart creating an alibi.
Which would have only been hours before police came to her home asking about Tara the first time. Her children are able to confirm that she did, in fact, go to South Carolina that weekend. If I'm not mistaken, Aubrey and Wendy both went with her to South Carolina. So all 4 of her children were in South Carolina, March 3rd through 5th. Well, 11 p.m. on March 3rd. That to me was crazy. I was like, you're doing a long trip. But I also know that I'm looking at that strictly through my lens.
Right.
I just can't imagine leaving at 11 p.m. for a weekend visit anywhere. The police still didn't really have anything to go on based on the information they got from the 3 Paynes' statements. They're still grasping for anything that might give them a lead or a break in the case. Because Celestine had been so cooperative, they asked if they could look around the house, specifically the space Tara had lived in and her belongings. She, of course, grants them access to the home and showed them where Tara had stayed, in a bedroom on the ground floor that was shared with Wendy. She pulled a suitcase out of the closet and told them that's where most of Tara's belongings were, which probably helped establish some of the veracity of Rosie's claim that the two were planning to move that weekend. The suitcase did not contain anything of value for the purpose of their investigation, which prompted Celestine to tell them that Tara also kept things downstairs in the basement and granted them permission to search through her belongings down there. While they were down there, one of the detectives noticed something out of place, but familiar, a stain on the floor that appeared to be dried blood. He looked up and saw that what he believed to be blood had dripped onto that spot from the wooden floor above. They could see...
Was Wendy's room right above that spot?
Could you...
Was Celestine's room right above that spot?
Would you... You think this is the last we're going to speak of this home? That I'm going to move on and we're never going to venture back here?
I'm sorry,
They are seeing blood that has seeped between two slats of wood from the floors above.
This is all I'm going to say. This really is a gift to me. I love how this case feels like I know what's going to happen, because that's never the case. I rarely ever know how things are going to go. So I am loving this.
All right. I'm glad that you're enjoying this.
I really am.
I know. I'm glad. Will it continue? We'll find out.
If Celestine's not the murderer, I'm going to be really upset. So let's just hope it keeps going.
Celestine was told of the blood found, and she wanted to know what the hell had gone on in her house. Adamant that she knew as soon as possible if Tara's murder had occurred in her home.
She is giving the performance of her life, baby.
Because of the possible crime scene, the detectives were granted a search warrant on March 9th, and they, alongside CSU, processed the home, searching for any evidence that could tell them what had happened to Tara. They traced the origin of the stain in the basement to a closet in one of the bedrooms in the home, where clothing had been piled on top of the stain to hide it. The same closet that Celestine had pulled Tara's suitcase from in her daughter Wendy's bedroom. Pieces of the flooring in the closet were cut and taken to the lab for testing, but because of the trauma that was inflicted on Tara's head, they knew that she had not been killed in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
They were not able to determine where she had been killed because the cleanup job that was done was almost immaculate. Whoever had killed Tara had not realized that the blood would drip through the wood, and certainly had not known it had made its way into the basement. With the discovery of the bloodstain in the closet of her bedroom, the investigators were able to table a couple of theories. This was not someone who blitzed Tara on the street or someone Tara met out at a bar or club that she then brought home who had ended up killing her. Whoever killed Tara was no stranger to her, because people who kill strangers don't hang around spending time cleaning up after their crime.
Mm-hmm.
They get the heck away from the crime scene as quickly as they can.
As any smart criminal does.
Yeah, just like you.
Yeah. Did Celestine write this down somewhere? Did she have a bitch list?
How many episodes in a row can we mention a bitch list?
I'm never forgetting the bitch list.
Not forgetting, but we try to bring a bitch list into every episode.
I mean, it makes sense for a killer.
Sure.
I just don't know what she did to Celestine.
What Celestine did to Celestine?
No.
What Tara did to Celestine.
Correct.
Got it. They definitely would not have hidden her body in a closet and done such a bang-up job cleaning the scene of Tara's murder. So the police believed that they had likely already spoken to someone who had been involved in this killing.
Also, bleach doesn't clean up a crime scene, right?
Bleach and blood both light up under luminol.
Okay.
Is what I understand of it.
Okay.
My experience as a crime scene
forensic analyst.
Undertaker.
That's, well, okay. In my very limited knowledge, I know that when you use bleach to clean up a crime scene, it doesn't work for some reason. Or at least that's what I've been led to believe.
Usually you'll go in and the first thing people note is that it smells like bleach.
Okay.
And then also it lights up very similar to luminol. So it messes with blood evidence. But I think what they were noting is that there had likely been a lot of cast off blood during this murder.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't seeing any signs of that. They weren't seeing blood on the ceiling and on the walls and on the cabinets.
Yeah.
Even with their experience in maybe looking at the underside of the lip of a countertop or things like that, places that people wouldn't typically think to look.
Right.
Kind of like how they don't think to look to clean out their noses for gunshot residue. So they'll swab in the nose for residue. Anyway, look at me, investigator extraordinaire.
Yeah, wear gloves and a mask.
Now they needed a list of everyone who had ever been to the home or who had regular access to the home. Anyone in addition to Celestine and her 2 children who lived there. During the time spent searching Celestine's home, Detective Ron Humphrey came across an interesting document that had the name Eugene Cooper on it, which sparked a memory. Eugene Cooper had been stabbed 6 months before, and they were not able to talk to him immediately following his admission into the hospital because he was on life support. By the time they came back to try to speak with him, detectives were unable to locate him because he had been discharged from the hospital. They had not been able to find him at the time, so they had never gotten any information from him to determine who had attempted to kill him, and almost succeeded. This time, however, they knew they had to locate Eugene. The same day that they executed the search warrant on Celestine's house, they also received a tip. Someone called them and told them that they knew who had killed Tara. They alleged that it was her boyfriend, who went by the nickname Original.
Did Celestine use a voice changer?
Detectives got in touch with Tara's family to see if they could find a more original name for this guy. It's always funnier when you react like you're so annoyed by my jokes.
Inconvenience at the comedic stylings.
Okay, so they wanted to find his name so that they could locate him. And her family told them that he was 27-year-old Edwin Morrison. Word gets out that the police are looking to talk to Original Edwin. So he called them.
Stupid. Original Edwin.
So he called them and agreed to come to the station to talk with them. He was very cooperative and told them that in the days leading up to Tara's murder, he had not seen her. He'd been staying with a friend.
I mean, of course he was cooperative. He's not the murderer. This is such a red herring. Someone is trying to set up Edwin to take the fall for Celestine.
The investigators were able to make contact with this friend who did alibi Original Edwin, and he is cleared as a suspect.
Good for Original. Any word on if he spelled originally incorrectly? No. Like stylistically?
No. The sources that I saw, it was original. But no word on if he ever did spell it. That's what people called him.
Okay.
Now that they have everything with Original Edwin cleared up, they're back on trying to get in touch with Eugene. They locate him on March 10th and talk to him about the time that he was stabbed. He had lived as a tenant of Celestine's in the time leading up to his stabbing, and the night of his attempted murder, he had been going out for the evening with another frequent flyer at Celestine's home, Wendy's boyfriend, Charles Darby. The pair left Celestine's home, and Charles got ahead of Eugene so he could tie his shoe or fix his jean cuff or pull a kitchen knife out of his sock. Possibly all 3, but definitely the latter. He plunged the knife into Eugene and then skedaddled, leaving Eugene for dead.
Why would Eugene not say this?
Because he had been in a coma.
Right, but he got out of the coma.
And he was discharged from the hospital by the time detectives came back.
I don't want to pretend to understand every social dynamic, but I can't imagine someone stabbing me and then me not going when I'm awake, hey, this is the bitch that stabbed me. You know, like
Did the police really try that hard in the 6 months since this stabbing to find Eugene?
That's fair.
Or did they say, well, he's been discharged? Shrug.
What city is this in?
Patterson, New Jersey.
I guess I would need to better understand the social and cultural and economic dynamics of that city to develop a more informed opinion.
In the early 90s, mid-90s.
No, I understand that. That's tough. That's interesting.
Eugene was able to get himself across a bridge or the street. It's not really clear, but he made it to a street corner. And that's where emergency services picked him up, taking him to the hospital where they saved his life. They also learned during their conversation with Eugene that Celestine's home was a very prime location to live. How else could you explain the cost of $400 every 2 weeks to share a bedroom with one of her children?
Wow. That's a lot of money in the early mid-90s to share a bedroom with somebody in fucking New Jersey.
Yeah. She was also a very typical landlord, just like you and I have had, where they request that you update your life insurance through work to make them the beneficiary of your policy.
Oh, Oh my, Celestine.
Eugene, in a very confusing move, did not do that because he had his mom listed as his beneficiary, and he felt that she was better suited for the role than Celestine.
Yeah, that is both a dumb and smart move, Eugene.
Imagine his surprise when he found out that Detective Ron Humphrey came across his name in Celestine's house on a life insurance policy that Eugene was entirely unaware of, despite his signature being on it.
Wow.
Well, his forged signature, if you would believe anything Eugene had to say on the matter.
He's an unreliable narrator, unreliable character. Why else would he get stabbed?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had it coming.
You really want me to break into song? Just an FYI, the signature of the insured on a life insurance policy is required when a non-family member is the beneficiary.
Okay.
When detectives had received the list of names from Celestine of people who had been at her home, one of the people she mentioned was her daughter Wendy's boyfriend, Charlie Pincham.
I love the name Pincham.
Charlie Pincham and Charles Darby were both romantically linked to Wendy. Could they be one and the same? The 6-photograph lineup that they gave Eugene that included a picture of Charlie Pincham would indicate that they were, because Eugene pointed Charlie Pincham out as Charles Darby, the man whose face he was not likely to forget after seeing him around Celestine's house so much and then being stabbed and left for dead by him.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll cement the face into your brain.
Now they had Charles Pincham's real name, they were able to issue him an arrest warrant for attempted murder. They executed that warrant at his mother's home, which was his last known address, and he was arrested without incident. Once they had him at the police station, he admitted to stabbing Eugene, but it wasn't that simple. The attack on Eugene was not his idea. Someone else had given him the knife and planned Eugene's death at the hands of Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
According to Charlie, it was Celestine who had told him to take Eugene somewhere dark and stab him in the neck.
Oh my God.
And had handed him a knife right out of her own knife block.
Wow. I mean, I never saw it coming.
It's really out of left field, I know.
I'm shocked. Celestine?
Yeah. This matronly,
the sweet, lovely, caring wife, mother, stepmother, who certainly isn't responsible for killing her husband, who was 17 years her senior. So she could collect his Tuxedo Place International insurance, life insurance, pension.
Apparently, Celestine and Wendy had been on Charlie's case for a while to kill Eugene, who had lived in the home for several years. And Celestine had gone so far as to tell Charlie that Eugene had been molesting Wendy for years in order to help convince him to kill him.
Oh, Celestine.
The two had been carrying on about a life insurance policy on Eugene that they were wanting to cash in on, and they offered him $20,000 to commit the murder. When Charlie had not jumped at the idea, Celestine had upped the amount to $60,000.
How big was the supposed life insurance policy?
I don't know that I know that.
It feels like it must have been substantial, but who's to say that she would actually give him anything?
Right.
It's not like they could put it in a contract.
If they did, she'd have just left it lying around her home. After wearing him down, and when Celestine handed him the knife, he finally made an attempt on Eugene's life, although it was unsuccessful, as we know. Interestingly, Charlie alleged that Celestine had also approached him on a similar scheme with a new target. Tara.
Shocking. Unbelievably shocking.
He declined that offer. On March 3rd, after he had offered to help Tara pack, he went to Celestine's home and saw Celestine and Aubrey dragging Tara's body out of the kitchen and toward the bedroom where the bloodstain was later uncovered during the search of the house. Aubrey told Charlie to get lost, and Celestine was there smoking a cigarette.
Counting the dollar bills from Tara's life insurance policy.
While this story was exhilarating, detectives did not have the physical evidence to back it up, so they headed off to find some.
You just did a case where no one gave a fuck about any physical evidence, and they were like, we're going to make whatever we want to fit in order to end this crime. And I'm just saying, in some of these instances, it sounds like this is a good enough for me, not to like hold Celestine on anything, but I'd be like, well, fuck yeah, she's the murderer, most likely. Like, we need to figure out what's going on.
Do you know what this podcast is missing?
What?
More of you slapping your leg while you're talking.
I'm sorry. Listen, I finished my coffee, so I won't be gulping that anymore. So I have to put in leg slapping. But I get so frustrated because it seems you've already kind of set up this paradigm of the police not working with people from this neighborhood because of their potential reputation as those involved with seedy behavior and business dealings. And so it's frustrating to me because I think, regardless of circumstance, Tara deserves justice. Eugene deserves justice for being stabbed.
So why are you upset that they're heading off to find evidence?
Oh, is that what they're doing?
Yes.
I thought you made it sound like it was dismissive, like they were like, sorry, that's not enough.
My sentence that you may have interrupted was, while this story was exhilarating, detectives did not have the physical evidence to back it up, so they headed off to find some.
I didn't let you finish. That's the problem.
Oh.
That last clause, I interjected before that. So that's
you took us to Wales.
Yeah.
We took a detour.
So I think, okay, well, good. I'm glad that they're doing their job. I like it when police do their job.
Is everybody writing this down? Hayden likes. They found the several life insurance policies, of which Eugene's name was on one, and lo and behold, another one had Tara's name on it. You're never going to guess who the beneficiary listed on Tara Carter's $25,000 life insurance policy was.
Her daughter.
Tara's daughter?
Yeah.
Do you have any other guesses?
Does it rhyme with Celestine? Murderine?
Yes, Celestine Payne was listed as the beneficiary.
$25,000 to kill somebody? That's it?
Mm-hmm. To kill a young mother who you've known since she was a child, basically, who through your daughter's friendship with her, you became close to her family. Yeah.
I want to rewind to the beginning question and just say I was obviously right that kids should stay with their parents.
But she was 18.
Don't care.
But legally, she was no longer under anybody's care, so she could make the decision to do that on her own, which is why my question doesn't really go. But kind of to the point that you were saying, even if she wasn't 18, if she had stayed there, she would have also stayed with her daughter.
Right. Which, again, we are not victim blaming. No. I would never want to blame Tara.
No, I just wish that she had lived.
Stayed with her parents and have her daughter stay with her there. Mm-hmm. God. Okay.
With the evidence of Celestine having a life insurance policy on Tara, arrest warrants were issued for Celestine and Aubrey. Since their home had been deemed a crime scene, they were staying with friends, and detectives had been trafficking? Trafficking? Wow. And that's where the story takes a really weird twist.
Back to them not doing their job.
We've added another crime here where the detectives had been tracking them since they had started putting the pieces of this puzzle together. It seemed to detectives that the mother-son duo were making moves that might indicate they were looking to leave town.
What?
Mm-hmm. I have this detail in here, but I'm not sure that it was as fast acting as it sounded just based on other information that I came across. So we're going to take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
On March 11th, exactly 1 week after Tara's body was discovered in East Side Park, both Celestine and Aubrey were arrested at the friend's home they had been staying at. And Celestine apparently called into the house as she was being taken away, saying, "They think I killed that child, and I'm going to tell them exactly who did."
Okay.
Since Celestine, according to Charlie, had seemingly been the mastermind behind this whole scheme, and since her name was the one listed as the beneficiary on multiple tenants' life insurance policies, they started with her.
Yeah, that seems smart.
During her interrogation, she repeatedly points them back at Charlie Pincham. She tells a tale of arriving at home and being shocked to discover that Charlie had killed Tara.
Not so shocked that she would report it?
Clearly not.
Not after. Okay, sure. Continue. Good. Sure. She
packed up and went to South Carolina.
Yeah.
They're not really sold, but she maintained this story, so they abandoned her and started in on Aubrey. Soon, word got to Celestine that Aubrey was being charged with murder, and she wanted to talk again.
Okay.
With her son's life on the line, she told detectives that Aubrey had nothing to do with killing Tara. She owned up to conspiracy to commit murder because she had known about the life insurance policies.
Mm-hmm.
After all, she had been the one to tell Wendy that she needed to pretend to be be Tara in order for her to take out the life insurance policy on her, indicating that Wendy had forged Tara's signature. It was likely that Aubrey had played the same role as Wendy when they took out the life insurance policy on Eugene. But despite all of this, Celestine maintained that Charlie Pincham was the person who had killed Tara.
I don't believe that.
Aubrey hadn't even been at the house when Charlie approached Tara from behind while she was curling her hair, probably in anticipation of the concert she and Rosie were planning to attend that night, and bashed her in the head with a crowbar. Around this time, Aubrey did come home with a bag of crabs, but Celestine told him to not come inside, so he said, okay, and hung the bag of crabs on the door handle and said he was going to a friend's house. Celestine's story and Charlie's story were conflicting. So they went back to Charlie and told him about how Celestine repeatedly assured them that he was the person responsible for killing Tara. He broke down crying at that point, claiming that Celestine had used him over and over again. This time, his story changed. Most notably, Aubrey was not present when Tara had been killed this time, but Charlie had. Wendy had been after him for a while to kill Tara, and he had not wanted to. But on March 3rd, he'd been sitting at Celestine's home in the living room when she walked up to him with a crowbar and handed it to him, indicating that it was time to kill Tara. She was sitting at the table in the kitchen, and just as Celestine said, he hit her in the head with the crowbar until she was dead. He and Celestine had moved the body into the closet in Wendy's bedroom and proceeded to clean the rest of the house, unknowingly permitting Tara's blood to create a mess that would lead the investigators back to them, despite all their efforts. He told them that after they had cleaned the home, Tara's body was taken to the park, and then Celestine had left for South Carolina with Aubrey and Wendy, as she had said, and as they had all confirmed. The detectives now had confessions that matched the evidence, so they were able to appropriately charge everyone involved with Tara's murder, including Wendy, who was charged with soliciting Charlie to commit murder. That in particular is why I don't know why we're leaving her name out of things, because she was charged with this crime.
Are you going to tell me what Celestine was charged with?
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay. But I will say that they probably focused more on Celestine and left Wendy's name out of things because the show that I watched was Snapped.
Got it.
Once the investigators were able to trace the rental car that Celestine had taken to South Carolina, they examined it looking for evidence that Tara's body had been in it. The trunk lining and padding in the wheel well were cut and taken to the lab, where it was determined that the lining had no traces of anything other than that it had been cleaned, but the padding underneath had traces of blood that was consistent with Tara's. The cleaning that was done in the trunk was superficial and, just like in the case of the basement, had not been as thorough as Celestine had thought. The warrant for Wendy's arrest was issued, but she was not in New Jersey at that time. She had gone to Lake City, South Carolina, which I'm assuming is where at least one of her siblings lived. And the Patterson Police Department contacted the Lake City police and asked them if they could take her into custody. After they had picked her up, they contacted Patterson Police and let them know that they had her in custody and that she was willing to talk to them. Wendy admitted to being involved by recruiting Charlie to kill both Eugene and Tara. She's also got stories. The crime did not start or end here. Amidst other schemes, Wendy mentioned that she had also believed her mother was responsible for her father's death. She recalled being told by her mother to never eat or drink anything that she had prepared for Alfonso Sr.
Shocking.
With this information, detectives opened a new chapter of their investigation into Alfonso's death. Because it had been determined to be an accidental death, the case was closed in 1991. Drug overdose deaths do not generally get investigated, so when the toxicology report on what had been in his system had come back, it hadn't been deemed suspicious. What investigators in 1995 were able to see from this report was that he had a high volume of drugs in his system, but none of them had been prescribed to him. They weren't street drugs either, but all of the drugs in his system had been prescribed to Celestine. And it would appear that she had been poisoning him over time, which explained his prolonged illness and possibly how he would have ended up mixing a lethal combination of these drugs and alcohol, because he likely had no clue that he had any drugs poisoning his system.
This bitch is so dumb. Like, of course, like, she's not thinking about, oh, I'm giving medications that are prescribed to me, but way to finger yourself.
It's stupid. I don't know. She's annoying,
to say the least.
Before his death, I mentioned that Celestine had complained about her marriage with Alfonso to her psychiatrist. I think you probably recall, because you really lit up at the word psychiatrist.
Yeah.
She also intimated to this mental health professional that she wished Alfonso would die or get killed. And the psychiatrist noted a sharp shift in her demeanor after his death. She was now happy. And why wouldn't she be? She had gotten $39,000 from a life insurance policy on Alfonso. There was maybe a second life insurance policy that was about $17,000. So at most, she got $56,000 off of his death.
That's crazy. That is such a crazy small amount for murder. I just think if I'm going to murder somebody, like, okay, if I'm taking the time period, neighborhood, socioeconomic class, all of that still seems
like you need at least six figures.
Like at least 100,000. 100,000 flat I could get. I could understand. But taking someone out for $36,000?
Well, no, she got $39,000 from a life insurance policy at a minimum. At most, $56,000.
Mm-hmm.
And he had taken the life insurance out on himself and named Celestine as the beneficiary.
Yeah, because that was his wife.
Right. But I don't think that she was thinking, if I kill him, I'm going to get money. I think she killed him and was glad he was gone, and then also got money.
Then she was like, oh, this is the scheme.
She was like, homemaker to insurance fraudster and murderer.
Mary murderess.
As it would later be revealed, Aubrey, Wendy, and a tenant took Alfonso's body to the location in the less than desirable neighborhood known for drugs at Celestine's urging. Now the detectives had enough to charge her with an additional count of murder for Alfonso Payne. Celestine and Charlie were both charged with numerous crimes surrounding the murder of Tara Carter and the attempted murder of Eugene Cooper, including forgery and insurance fraud. Just a little tidbit that I didn't know where else to include this piece of information, but while Eugene was in a coma in the hospital after being stabbed and left for dead, Celestine impersonated his mother and attempted to collect his life insurance.
Oh my God.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that she probably tried to claim that she had pulled the plug on his life support or something to that effect, because she had also falsified a signature on a DNR.
This woman has no limit.
Right.
There's also a pretty limited sense of self-preservation, because that's getting pretty ballsy.
Right. Wendy Payne pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. She was sentenced to 28 years in July of 1997. She appealed for parole and was denied March 6th, 2002. Denied again on February 9th, 2005. In October of 2005, it was determined that she would have to serve 48 more months before she could apply for parole again. I didn't include this, but apparently that number is usually 24.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was being, I guess, sentenced to that additional 48 months before she could apply for parole again, she tried to appeal that because that was more time than was typical during the appeals process. So from my understanding, she would have become eligible for parole again in 2009, but I don't know anything more about when she reapplied for parole, only that she was released at some point between 2009 and 2023-24.
Okay.
Because I was also on the New Jersey correctional site looking up inmates, and a disclaimer came up saying that there had been a law passed in like 2017 where anybody who had been released more than a year or more than 5 years prior, you could no longer see the record of their incarceration.
Okay.
Celestine and Charlie opted for trials and entered pleas of not guilty. After learning that the district attorney intended to seek the death penalty, Charles Pincham accepted a plea deal in exchange for testifying against Celestine. Celestine was playing hardball and was unwilling to budge on pleading not guilty.
Bad idea, Celestine. Much like all of the ideas you've had. Oh my God.
When the time came for jury selection, all of a sudden, her defense attorney offers a guilty plea in exchange for a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Charlie is apparently eligible for parole on June 12th, 2031. Celestine applied for compassionate release in 2021 under a law that New Jersey adopted that would allow terminally ill or physically incapacitated inmates to be released. January 13th, 2025, her case was ruled on. Apparently, Celestine has a physical incapacity that has limited her to living in the prison's infirmary for years. And prison doctor James Cassidy has deemed her a low risk to commit any other crimes.
Low risk isn't no risk.
He also conveys that her peers in prison really adore her, to which I will counter that she is a highly manipulative person who is very charming because she is able to convince people to do her bidding, which, might I remind you, includes but is not limited to murdering a teenage mother. Low risk to commit other crimes?
Yeah.
She handed Charlie the weapons and then dictated that he kill on her orders. She's never been the risk for taking the knife and plunging it into somebody, but she is still a risk.
Right.
As long as she's got the mental capacity to speak to people.
As long as she can talk.
I'm mad at Dr. James Cassidy. I would never be concerned that she would pick up a weapon other than to hand it to someone else and convince them to get blood on their hands while pretending she has none on hers.
Was she released?
Her compassionate release motion was denied, so she appealed it, and the appellate court overturned the denial. It was then appealed to the New Jersey Supreme Court, who chastised the appellate court basically for downplaying her role in the crimes she was responsible for. It seems the Supreme Court believed that Celestine was devious and manipulative.
Imagine that.
A quote from the episode of Snapped that I got most of this information from was, "Someone who can convince people to commit crimes is more dangerous than the actual murderer, Dr. James Cassidy." If you're listening to this episode on the day it is released, today is the 30th anniversary of Tara's body being discovered in Eastside Park. At the trial for Celestine's compassionate release, Tara's daughter spoke about her fear that if Celestine were released, her family would become potential targets for retribution. Obviously, her family is still grieving the loss of Tara, who never had a chance to live her life, fulfill her passion of doing hair professionally, see her daughter grow up. Tara was a friendly and social person who always happened to bring a new friend home. It was just unfortunate that one of those friends ended up being Wendy Joy Payne. And that is the case of the murder of Tara Carter.
I'm taking a moment to metabolize my feelings on this case. And I love how easy it was to follow and to have a...
You went in on Celestine early and you didn't have to regret it later on.
Yes, it's just so nice. It's so nice to hear a story where the bad guy is the bad guy and the bad guy gets in trouble.
Yeah.
I love that I didn't have to feel sympathetic for Celestine. I love that she's just a horrible, terrible, rotted person, point blank, period. I love that she's being punished for it. I love that the New Jersey Supreme Court was like, yes, bitch, you're staying in prison. I don't care how incapacitated you are. And no true crime story should make you happy. And by and large, they don't. But there is something that is fulfilling about someone
whose
having
actions
to...
or they catch up to them.
Yeah, there's real retribution. There's real consequences. There is... They aren't allowed to get away with a crime with minimal impact to themselves. And I think that's how most criminals should be treated, especially murderers.
Mm-hmm.
And so this case really was a gift to me for your birthday. And I love that. It was an easy adventure.
I chose this case because I wanted to do something that I would enjoy for the episode that would come out on my birthday. Mm-hmm. And I asked my sister, like, how do I approach finding the case? Because I found other cases that were related to birthdays, but she was like, well, choose one that happened on your birthday, which it is weird to equate this young mother's body being found on my birthday. Like, it is weird to draw parallels between those two things that don't have anything in common other than the date. But one, this story, the amount of research I had to do to get a lot of this information, the story has not been covered, which is kind of wild because I think that Celestine is maybe one of the most diabolical people that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was kind of interesting that it also ended up having my sister's and your sister's birthdays in it as well, because she was like, go pick a case that was on your birthday. And it was really just everybody's birthday except for yours.
I found a case that happened on your birthday.
The day?
Yeah.
The day I was born?
Yeah.
Oh, am I going to get that?
I'm going to do it at some point.
Nice. I'm going to do it on your birthday.
Yeah, there we go. I'm too selfish for that. A case for my birthday is going to be something I like, which, not that your case wasn't something you like, but...
Yeah, I definitely wasn't writing that so that you would be like, I really enjoyed that. But it worked out that way.
Very good. Just so simple. I am so lazy sometimes. The fact that my brain didn't have to... Well, and I do not consume true crime necessarily the same way you do, which is where I'm positing at every chance about who the murderer is or how the story pieces fit together. So it was kind of nice to be on that side and to say, you know what? I do see this. I do see a pattern. I do see that there is a pretty obvious killer early on. Mm-hmm. Great work.
Not a lot of coverage of Alphonse's death, so I wanted to start there.
Yeah.
And then eventually we did come back to it.
I think that was valiant.
Valiant? Mm-hmm. Whenever anybody says the word valiant, I just imagine that I am wearing armor and riding a horse, holding a sword in the air. That is the only way that I picture anybody who's described as valiant. So I gotta go put on my knight's attire.
Yeah, go put on your chainmail. Mm-hmm. And
why don't I go put on my birthday suit?
What armor is more valiant than your birthday suit?
I can't think of any.
There
but
you go.
I am glad that you enjoyed this case. Of course, our hearts go out to the Carter family, Tara's daughter, who never really got a chance to meet her in a way that she could remember her.
And Alphonse's first family.
Yeah. One of the obituaries that I saw, though, was... So Alphonse Jr. died in 1988, but then Maureen also passed in like 2014, 2010. So I guess at the very least, she did know that her father didn't die of some weird illness, that his wench of a wife was responsible for killing him. Because then don't you think like that plays into you trying to figure out your family history, your medical history?
Yeah.
A complete list of sources and any links can be found in the show notes.
And that's all we've got for this episode. If you enjoyed listening and want to hear more, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a review.
Recommend us to a friend and...
Make sure you're following...
I wasn't done. I was not done.
Well, it says recommend us to a friend.
You know that I never stick to this script.
Okay.
Recommend us to a friend and maybe do some reverse psychology on an enemy to get them to listen to our show.
And make sure you're following us at End of Crime Pod on Instagram.
Our email address is endofcrimepod@gmail.com.
Wow, you are really fucking with the script today. Thank you for listening.
Until the next crime.